Hi, everybody. This is Steve Halkenaper. Welcome to Building a Career That Matters. Today, we begin our discussion about roadblock number 2020, dealing with long-term disruption. We estimate that this call series is probably going to take the next three sessions, counting today, but we'll see how it all grows. Today, we're going to look at what these disruptions are really all about, how they're impacting business, what kinds of opportunities they might be opening up for you, what you need to do to take full advantage of the opportunities that this situation is bringing to us. And ultimately, we're going to be talking about how you basically migrate your business from your current delivery method into a delivery method that is insulated from the disruptions that we'll be going over. So by the time we're done, we'll be talking about YouTube and online course delivery and social media and how to market yourself in the media and how to edit a decent little video and what you're going to. So we'll be covering all those little elements before we're done with this little section. But here we go, special edition, Roadblock 2020, dealing with long-term disruption. So let's kind of jump into this by looking at what types of long-term disruptions could fall into this kind of a category. And I know right now this is being triggered by COVID-19. So it's all being triggered by a pandemic. But I want everyone who's listening to this to know that that's not the only kind of long-term disruption that we have ever dealt with. And no doubt it is not the only kind of long-term disruption that we will encounter moving forward. So let's talk a little bit about the kinds of long-term disruptions that you might want to be thinking about, how your business would be able to navigate that, survive that, or take full advantage of it. So obviously right now we have a pandemic going on and we're up into, what is this, month 9, month 10? Since it got kind of in full swing. I know we call it COVID-19, so technically they first identified it in 2019. But as far as its disruption of our businesses, we're probably up there in month 9, month 10. If any of you have been keeping track of it, if so, feel free to unmute and give me some specific dates. And obviously, the pandemic has caused a lot of issues with all of our businesses. And sadly, it's also caused issues with several of our team members who have either become sick themselves or are dealing with someone in their life who has become sick. And, they had to set their business aside because they needed to take care of those people in their lives. The pandemic has certainly led to all sorts of shutdowns, and ultimately some of those shutdowns have resulted in full-blown closures of different kinds of businesses, different industries, etc. And while we've witnessed that through the pandemic, there are other things that can cause businesses to have to shut down, or for there to be industries that get hit very powerfully and suffer for a long time to come. So it's not just that. Another category of this would be travel restrictions. Obviously, again, all this stuff is leading off of the pandemic this time around. But how many of you remember when that volcano erupted in Iceland and suddenly international travel all over Europe and to and from Europe became a very different sort of a situation? We had people on our team who had scheduled speaking events and training events in Europe, and lo and behold, their flights were all canceled because they couldn't do that. And now, of course, we're looking at things like travel restrictions impacting our ability to enter countries, leave countries. Even when I think about how when right now people are traveling and they have to quarantine for 2 weeks. Well, when I did international travel for business, I would be leaving, doing my stuff and coming back in about 3 days flat. And so the thought that I'm going to go somewhere and quarantine for 14 days to deliver a program, if they'll even allow me in the country, and then do it and come back and have to spend another 14 days in quarantine, that's just absurd. That's not any real way to live, let alone operate a business. So, but travel restrictions are very real things that can represent long-term disruptions. In fact, I still think our borders between the US and Canada are, functionally closed. There's also all kinds of political upheavals, even though in our particular situation, we've just gone through an election, and it doesn't fall in the category of the kinds of political upheavals that other countries have experienced scattered around the world that have changed them forever. It was distracting at the very least. And so those kinds of things can also be viewed as being a disruption to it. If nothing else, it might have just been disrupting your ability to stay focused on whatever it is you were trying to do, or disrupted your client's ability to be focused on what it is you were trying to do with them and for them. So there's also politically related disruptions. Um, Recessions and depressions, we've had many of these that have had nothing whatsoever to do with the pandemic. But if we go back to 2008, or I don't remember the date of the one that came before that, but periodically there's going to be turns in the way that the economy is operating. And when those things happen, we have to kind of adjust accordingly, because suddenly our clients don't have the revenues they might have had. We may not have the revenues. We may need to do something to augment whatever our income stream happens to be. Oh yeah, Jane just mentioned 9/11, all flights grounded in the US. Also, if you think about 9/11, which gets us back to perhaps shutdowns, travel restrictions, nobody wanted to congregate in any kind of a place that could be targeted as the next kind of terrorist attack. So even though the hotels and convention centers weren't closed the way they are right now with the pandemic, they were closed because nobody was willing to go to them. And so people didn't want to fly. They didn't want to assemble in any kind of a group. And so um, now 9/11, I think, had long-term impacts. I don't know if those impacts have extended out as far as the pandemic's impact has, but nevertheless, it's a perfect example of other times that our businesses have become disrupted. Now, if we add to that the last two, personal illness, certainly we have had, we've been doing this for a very long time. We have had many, many of our certified professionals end up with some sort of a personal illness they needed to deal with, or they were having some sort of a procedure, a surgery, like a hip replacement or a knee replacement, that pretty much put them out of commission for X amount of time. And so personal illnesses, personal issues can certainly lead to long-term disruptions. And I get it, I put death on here, and I thought, well, when I'm dead, it's kind of like that's the ultimate disruption. So what's there to talk about? Well, this is where you need to talk about, well, what happens after your death? You've all spent your careers establishing practices and developing intellectual property. So does all that end because you're no longer able to, if the personal illness has disrupted things to that level? Or if you die, does all of your life's work have to die as well? And so I think it's important for us to factor that in as well. What happens when we're done? And do we want to prepare now for something good happening when that tragic event, that day of that tragedy, actually occurs? So I'll open up to you guys now. I love the example of 9/11. Can you guys think of other kinds of long-term disruptions that you've experienced in your careers or in your lives? So what other things kind of fall into this category of reasonable, if not definitely long-term disruptions to business? Yeah. Oh, well, there you went. Denise just put up about having a baby. Well, not a personal illness by any stretch of the imagination, but nevertheless, something happened, and suddenly there's another life that needs to be tended to. So for a certain period of time, the business might get put on the back burner. And so, yeah, there's lots of things, and that's the whole point of this. There are lots of things that can disrupt our business. Okay, so with that, let's kind of go on to a little bit about how these things actually do disrupt your business. And so again, I'd love it if you guys will unmute and contribute. This is the circle of brilliance, and so we are hoping all of you will contribute to this, to the benefit of everyone who's listening. But these disruptions express themselves in your businesses in what ways? How does this disrupt your business?
This is Jane. I think the pandemic is such an interesting example because it has disrupted people in so many different ways. And there's some companies that are just exploding with business.
Mhm.
The pandemic, then I was going to say, the election and all of that kind of stuff, like Newsmax, for example, had, I don't know, a very small viewing audience. And now all of a sudden they're beating out Fox on,
Yeah. Yep.
in certain time frames. And any kind of explosive growth or shrinking, where if you're in a
Mhm.
restaurant and you have to close down, those are probably just as disruptive.
Yeah, in fact, we were watching a 60-minute segment this past Sunday about the availability of PPE and companies that have gone into business to supply PPE, and how different ways of doing that have led to different levels of success. And so sometimes a disruption can lead to a huge opportunity. Hopefully, you're able to handle that massive influx of opportunity. Not all of them can or did so
Like Zoom,
successfully.
for example. Zoom is a great example.
Yeah, right, right. I saw an interview with the gentleman who started Zoom, and he just said, "We never intended it to be this. This was never in our thoughts as we started to create Zoom." So on the one hand, he's apologizing for all the technical difficulties they had and the issues they were having with privacy and security and all that sort of a thing. But really, they got pulled into a whole different realm than they had ever intended to be. So there's a lot that's going on. It looks like Denise has also contributed that emotionally, the drama and fear that is spreading zaps the hopeful and positive thoughts.
Hmm.
Isn't that interesting? Now, that goes back to our discussions we've had about neurotransmitters. And so when we read things like drama and fear, is that leaving us up in our cerebral cortex where logic rules the day, or is that pulling us down into our limbic system where emotions and imagination and creativity, for all of its positive and negative side, have come into presence. So we'll defer to Brian there. Brian, what do you think about this incidence of drama and fear robbing us of hopeful and positive thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to mention that because the way that I don't see technology on this list, but I think it does have a long-term impact just because like the social media, how things spread rather quickly. And right now there seems to be this disconnect in understanding what is real and what isn't in terms of where the source is coming from. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
anyone with any kind of mass audience like automatically have this credibility, whether or not they're spreading conspiracy or not
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. So,
That's
and
that's a really
technology changes everything for us in that way.
That's a very interesting thing, because I could add that as a bullet point if I wasn't in slideshow mode. But I think you're right that one of the kinds of disruption is when the quantity and quality of the information people are receiving becomes less reliable, more questionable, or just more, period. It becomes a bit overwhelming for them as well. So that too becomes a disruption. And so again, I'm kind of curious, for everyone who's kind of listening to this in the Building a Career That Matters kind of series, how do long-term disruptions impact your ability to deliver your services, to find your clients, to keep your clients? What are you guys noticing? What are you experiencing in terms of your actual business operations?
This is David Harrell. Significant. It used to be that as a executive coach, a consultant, a trainer, every client engagement I had was on site,
Mm-hmm.
and for decades. And now that's just not possible. And even Zoom, Teams, and Skype make it difficult to watch 5 or 8 or 10 people as you try to present material.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so certainly it's impacted our ability to deliver our clients. How many of you have had any changes in your actual client base? Any clients of yours decide to go on hold for a while or had to postpone, delay sorts of things? How many of
We
you have? Yep.
this is Jane. We had one large client in California, a healthcare system, and we'd had a retainer with them for 5 years where we were doing a significant amount of work and traveling down there several times a month. And they put the retainer on hold in June, and it really impacted
Sure.
our revenue. So
Yeah, and from their perspective, there could be lots of reasons why they put things on hold. Was it financial? Was it logistical? Was it just that they were preoccupied by so many other things they just didn't have the bandwidth for what you were doing? So I brought that up just to say, like, you guys in your delivery of services, the quality of your services may have done absolutely nothing whatsoever to bring this into your reality, but things changed for your clients. And
mhm.
because of the changes with the clients, well, they had to make a decision that certainly wasn't one you were hoping for.
Yeah, this is Brian. It brings back to what Denise was just describing earlier, because the pandemic seems to be the cause of people like cutting back on like customer service, right? So you contact customer service now and they say, well, we can't do X, Y, and Z because of the pandemic. And all they're doing is, answering a call.
Yeah.
So, you kind of cut back on service when really you should scale up, I would think. But it's sort of like change where the pandemic just become the excuse for mediocrity.
Yeah.
Well, I want to agree with part of that, but on the other hand, a lot of those people, the call centers and customer service people are working remotely, and they didn't have the system set up for that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's what I've heard from some companies that I've been frustrated with the long wait times and stuff like that. But yes, I also agree that they use it as as an excuse for mediocrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Tom. As I hear that, I realize this is a great opportunity to help our clients sort through how self-awareness, how much of it is an excuse and how much of it is something that we're just not ready to adapt to, not feeling resourceful. Because in my case, the rude awakening was when I was in the classroom and traveling a lot, I had all these inspirational ideas. And I said, if I ever get the time, I'm going to do these things. And then April came and I had all this time, and I'd rather have a root canal than do some of them. So I had to get honest about, where am I? Where am I going? And what am I willing to do? And to get into momentum there. My point is,
Right.
that's difficult to do on your own, because Slippery Tom would say, well, there's a pandemic. You can't.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I saw somewhere a little meme early on in the whole pandemic where someone said that the most startling realization they've had is that the excuse they've been using about not having time really isn't legit at all. So I thought that was just great. Time is really not the problem. So
It's such a bogey.
yeah. Okay, others?
Yeah, you know what? As I listen to this, I've always been told to have residual income, and it sounds like everybody on the call, it's kind of exchange money for time. And I think this is a rude awakening for people to have multiple streams of income and residual income. I have vacation rentals, and they have never been better. So I've switched gears. Do I like it as much? But with the long term, it's okay. So what I'm saying is that it's good to don't put all your eggs in one basket, because these things are going to happen again.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up, Edie. As you guys will see in a couple of slides, I'm going to be talking to you a lot about residual income. And when I'm talking about residual income, I'm also talking about income streams that can continue even after you are no longer physically able to deliver services, or you're just plain gone. So we'll be talking a lot about all that, because I do think Edie's absolutely right. A lot of us have become so successful at the delivery of services in that format where we are basically trading time for money, that we never really thought about creating anything that would bring us residual income. And now it's kind of more important than ever. So we'll definitely be getting into that. Well, one other little thing I want to talk about as far as a disruption goes that you guys may have experienced in your businesses is realizing that the kinds of services, products, programs you've traditionally delivered were not the programs, products, and services that the marketplace needed once when the pandemic came along. And so how many of you recognize that, ooh, I could create a program about this. This is what they need right now. And you rose to the occasion and said, like, that's an opportunity. And how many of you have either experienced for yourself or heard of others who went like, no, the only thing I've ever done is X, and the only way that I can do it is X. And so their own limiting beliefs and limiting practices stopped them. So, disrupted their businesses. I'll shut up about that for now, but you get the idea. It also disrupted whatever your menu of programs, products, and services might have included. Thoughts about that?
Yeah.
So this is David Harrell. What I found is that a lot of clients are really looking to us, learning professionals, to help their individual contributors be more comfortable delivering services remotely. That's been a big focus of a number of my clients, trying to train their producers, their salespeople, their customer service people how to do things remotely, and include screens and screenshots and various things that help them communicate with their customers, and they have no design background to be able to put these things together.
Right. And adding to that, how do you manage a remote staff? So, the supervisory and management skills are different now. And going back to the people now working at home, if they've never worked at home before, we all know this probably, but how do you minimize the distractions of daily living? How do you actually make yourself sit down at your desk and just work when there's stuff all over the house that, you could use as creative avoidance? So, yeah.
This is Brian, and there's physicians that I know and how it's changed what they do and what they want to do, because some of them who don't necessarily have to be on the front line are afraid of interacting with patients. But I know physicians now in telemedicine that they're licensed literally in all 50 states. And so that's all they do now. So it's the same amount of time that they will spend with a patient in the office. And even in looking at the trends through the Physicians Innovation Network that I'm a part of with the American Medical Association, there's over 13 now startups in telemedicine that filed recently IPOs. So that shows a strong trend and moving in that direction, even post-pandemic.
Right, because how many physicians do have national licenses? And even those who do, how many of them have any practical way of reaching out to such a broad and deep audience? So this is remarkable. It's remarkable. In fact, before the pandemic came along, I'm not so sure I'd ever heard of telemedicine other than on the occasional TV show.
No, for the medical industry, from what I see, tends to respond in a crisis. So like the 2007 brought on the funding, brought the stimulus funding, brought on the electronic medical records. And now you see a lot of from the pandemic, you see the telemedicine and other kinds of digital health.
Yeah.
And everyone's jumping on that bandwagon.
Well, good. All right, let's take a look at the little next page I put together, and that is that in order for you guys to really deal with long-term disruptions in our industry, we have to make sure we get our head in the right place. I can tell you in our experience working with all the professionals we work with that a lot of them just plain couldn't get their head in the right place to decide to do this. And I'll talk about this in the fourth bullet point, but you have to accept the situation for what it is. How many of you kind of believe that after all these months, anyone who believes we're going to go back to normal some way, someday is just really fooling themselves. There'll be a new normal, no mistake about it, but the normal we knew before is pretty much gone. Yeah. We have to,
Yes.
you have to accept that. We have to accept that. It may very well be a very long time before people are comfortable doing the level of traveling we did before, assembling in large conference room, doing classroom trainings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This could be something that's going on for at least the next year, if not even beyond that. So we need to accept the situation. And that means we need to make a fundamental decision. And I'm really big about fundamental choice. So are you choosing to become a successful business in the new reality? Or are you going to say, I'm going to wait for the old reality to return? What is your fundamental decision? Hang on to whatever the life ring is, or learn to swim. You know, what's it really going to be? And you guys don't necessarily need to answer these bullet points as we're working our way through them, but I don't want to discourage you from doing so if you've got something you want to throw in around that point. For me, the whole idea is finding opportunity in the chaos. So yes, change is inevitable, but every change opens up opportunity. So doesn't that make change an inevitable opportunity? So we got to find, what is that opportunity for us inside of that chaos? And once we have accepted it and we've made the decision that we're going to allow ourselves and our businesses to evolve, we're going to find those opportunities and pursue those opportunities in the chaos, good things could happen. But many people in our line of work and many, many other industries have decided that it's time to fold. So they've decided, for whatever reasons, that they're going to go ahead and retire, or they're just going to go out of business, or they're just going to close the business they have and move into something entirely different. Those of us who have decided that this is just the latest change in our industry have our head in the right place. We know what we want to do now is to redefine what we do, how we do it, and then we need to redeploy. And that redefinition and redeployment may involve new sets of skills, new tools, new approaches, but nevertheless, we find that to be an opportunity, and maybe we find it to be an exciting opportunity. In fact, some of you have said, why did I wait for a pandemic to make these changes that just plain made so much sense for my business to have made years ago? So anybody comments around that, thoughts around that?
Hey, this is Patty.
Yes, Patty.
So this is very much my situation. I had been working on online programs since the end of 2018, but had not found a successful way to sell them, and realigned, not because of the pandemic, but the pandemic gave me that opportunity to not only realign and learn how to do this better, but also to shift my business model. So that's really what I've been doing over the last year, is developing programs. Now I've developed the concept of the revenue roundtable so that I can help women business owners increase their revenue and build a community around that. So I have found tremendous opportunity in this situation. And because my business went virtual, I went virtual about 4 years ago, when it wasn't that acceptable and people pushed back occasionally. And I'm so, so grateful that I did that, because I wasn't scrambling when everybody went virtual, because I already had everything in place and because my clients already accepted that. So when I'm looking at your slide, I'm thinking it's very validating, and I feel very good about where I am currently.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about the benefit to you when everybody else finally decided to go digital. How did that change your day-to-day reality?
Well, it's become the norm. So I no longer have to say we'll meet virtually, because everyone knows if we're going to meet, it's going to be virtual.
Yeah.
So it's simplified some things, and and given me a lot of opportunities to meet with people who previously only wanted to meet in person. And I wasn't doing that. I stopped doing that years ago. So, and part of that is I'm in Houston, Texas, and I didn't want to be in my car all the time.
Right.
So it was a productivity and efficiency issue for me. It was a lot of things.
Yeah.
And now there's no pushback. There's no question that we're going to meet on Zoom. And it's so much simpler.
Yeah. Yep. And see, I think
Patty,
that
I'd like to add to that too, because I think a lot of people knew, this is Linda, a lot of people knew that really that was a wonderful way to start going, but I don't think there was enough tension in a
Mhm.
lot of people's businesses. So plus, I think a huge factor is if even people tried while they were trying to keep their business going, and there's a huge learning curve. But
Mhm.
I think the opportunity that the pandemic has given us is we now have to do something. Our tension
Yeah.
is high enough, and we do hopefully have a little bit of extra time for that learning curve to get everything in place.
Yeah. And so building on what Linda's just said and what Patty said, we may have been ready to move into an online delivery sort of format years ago, but the clients, for whatever reason, weren't. Well, now the clients have little, if any, choice in the matter. And so now that they've come to technology, perhaps reluctantly, maybe even unwillingly, they're now comfortable with it. It's become pretty much a routine sort of a thing. And so I hate to say there's a silver lining to a pandemic, but from our business operational perspective, it certainly gave us an opportunity to boost our efficiency, to boost our spread. But one thing I'll share that Patty hasn't shared is that she focused on Houston until she went virtual. And now, where could you be doing your services, Patty? She'll need to unmute, but
Oh, anywhere.
anywhere. And so what did that just do to our opportunity, particularly when you're doing something that is relatively niche and that's focusing on women-owned businesses? There's plenty of them in Houston, of course, but there's plenty more if you can stretch your reach. And going virtual certainly allows that to happen very easily. All right, so
I
obviously,
also have just a very quick little story. I was on a Zoom call last night, and one of the senior members of the group, she's in her 70s, she's a professor, and she said what she was grateful for was that she was grateful for Zoom. And I said, oh my gosh, you called me at least 100 times saying how much you hated Zoom and you didn't want to teach online. And she says, I know. And now I love it. I've changed my mind.
Yeah. There's always the early adopters, the late adopters, the reluctant adopters, and some people that just have to be, in fact, I think it's a quote from Alexander the Great, that have to be dragged kicking and screaming into the 20th century. So, yeah, there you go. All right, so let's go on to the next little slide here. Obviously, you guys are all in the redefine, redeploy kind of thing. And as Linda alluded to, there is a learning curve. And so I just wanted to make sure that we set the stage a little bit to give you guys some basic homework. We've spent all of these months very much exploring and testing and doing trials of different sorts of software, and the learning curve is vast. The finding curve is muchly more vaster. And we hope that these calls will save you guys a lot of time and a lot of trouble as you decide whether or not you want to go down this little path that we've ended up going down. So just know there's a learning curve. And I will tell you this without hesitation, every single company you're going to encounter as you try to find someone who says, oh, sure, you can put your training program up on our platform. And yeah, you can develop all these kinds of online marketing kinds of things. And oh, you can create this membership organization and blah, blah, blah. Everything they're telling you is true, but the thing they seem to minimize is the learning curve and the amount of actual time it takes to build out what they're telling you. continue to build out. So, and I understand why they're downplaying it. They're making it, is it difficult? No, but there's, you know, a gamillion steps involved in these things, so many moving parts. So we're hoping that this series will help you guys to better navigate that. Now that we've stumbled our way through it, let's see what we can do to help all of you. Okay, anywho, next little slide, click here. So there are some points to ponder. And these are the things that I'm going to kind of give you guys as a bit of homework. But I want you to think about the current and future health of your business. If you guys were saying, and you can even make this a little bit about the past. So was your business positioned in a pretty healthy way to begin with? So when the pandemic came along, you didn't feel such a huge hit. Right now, have you been able to adjust enough that some stability has come into play? Are you still dealing with whatever fallout is happening? What do you predict is going to happen in the future? So I think you need to for a moment, set aside positive thinking and just do a very practical, realistic, unemotional assessment of the health of your business. So you can just answer the question, do you need to do anything differently than you're doing right now? And the second question is, even though you may not need to do it, is there a great opportunity if you do it anyway? Are there, so some of these changes we're going to talk about may be absolutely necessary. Some might be optional, but could be very, very beneficial for your businesses. So we don't know about the health of your individual businesses, only you know that. So we want you to think about, is it healthy as it is? And so nothing needs to be done, or is there work that needs to be done? Is there changes that needs to be made? Now, once you are looking at that, the next question is, well, if I want to improve the health of my business, I need to look at what I have to offer my clients. So I might have created all the most glorious programs, products, and services the human development industry has ever encountered, but they may not be in a format that is deployable right now. So it could simply be a matter of packaging what you have to offer. It could be that you are missing certain key topics. And in the Building a Career That Matters series, we do deep dives into each of those things I've just said. So whether it's delivery methodologies, or is it about the scope of the programs and services, or the topics, you know, content is king, that sort of stuff. There are other lessons in Building a Career That Matters that everyone can certainly tap into. But you got to look at that. Am I offering my clients right now what they need in a way they can get to it? And which gets to the next one about how you're delivering your products and services. We're the ones that have to understand our clients' needs, their preferences, and adjust ourselves accordingly. The chances that we're going to come up with something, hold tight to it, and expect the clientele in significant numbers to fall in line, that's not as realistic. So we got to be looking at these things. We have to ponder these points. What do we have to offer our clients, and how are we delivering our products and services? So I'll do it as a way of a question for you guys. Do you right now, are you willing to step into the confessional and say, yes, I either need to or would like to do something to enhance the health of my businesses? Anyone who's unmuted can give me an amen if that's absolutely
Yes.
true. So, okay, yeah. All right. The second thing is,
Amen.
thank you so very much.
Amen.
Yes, I'm raising my hand.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
You
good.
should have
So-
heard the muted amen. It was even
yeah, that
louder.
was good. Yeah. All right. So that's it. And then the next one is, when you think about what you have to offer your clients, are there gaps that you might want to explore? So new products, new services, new ideas, new whatever that you can bring to your clients? Or do you just say like, no, I got everything that I need? I don't care what the answer is. I just want you to be aware. Do you need to fill gaps, or do you have everything exactly the way you need it right now? So what's your answer to that one? Gaps to fill, work to be done, or are we
Gaps to
A-okay?
fill and work to be done.
Okay, work to
Work
be
to
done.
be done.
Work to be done. Work
To
to
be
be done.
done.
And some of that, by the way, is work to be done that falls into the necessary category. And some of that work that needs to be done falls into the opportunity to expand category. So then you look at about how do you go about delivering your products and services? Yeah, I was one of these guys that always did, I'll fly to you and stand in front of your audience. So my delivery started changing years ago. You guys know how long we've been doing, whether it was audio conference calls to web conferences. We've been moving into this for a very, very long time. Nevertheless, there was all kinds of additional product delivery platforms that we could have done something with and just never felt like it was necessary because the bulk of our work was me still flying somewhere and delivering services. Well, how many of you right now kind of know, like, no, when it comes to the way I'm delivering, packaging, delivering my services, there's work to be done. There's opportunity here because the old way is just not possible anymore, not likely to be possible for a good while to come. Work to be done or A-okay?
Work to be done.
Work to be done, work to be done. And now we get to this next one, transactional versus residual income. Now, if you were a different crowd, I would spend a lot of time talking to you the differences and get really in detail about transactional business operations versus a residual business model. But here it is. Transactional is trading time for money, or trading a thing for money, which by the way translates into time. So it might be a book, but you had to write that book. And so there's a certain time. That being said, the book could become part of residual income because once it's created, it could continue to be sold for a very long time to come. Residual income basically says, I'm going to do something one time, and then I'm going to leverage that in as many ways as I can to continue to bring me money without me doing much, if anything, to make that money happen. A couple of quick examples I'll give you of this is those of you who have developed any kind of coursework and you put it up on one of those membership course delivery platforms where now you're in their catalog, and once in a while you receive notification that someone signed up for your program and here's some money. Well, that's what we're talking about, but we're talking about putting a little bit more energy into it. So it isn't the occasional surprise. Here's a commission surprise. Here's your little part of whatever the training fee happens to be. Let's see if we can make that a bit more of an engine that is residual, but is performing at a higher, more reliable kind of a level. Does that make sense? So do it once, or do it once, get paid once, or do it once and get paid over and over and over again. What's your choice?
It's an easy choice.
It's an easy choice,
Residual.
right? But how many of you will admit that you've pretty much been stuck in a transactional business model for a good long while?
Guilty as charged.
And why
Guilty.
is that? Because it was handy. We were used to it. And as long as I was getting these training engagements, I was going like, we're doing great. We're doing great. You know, I didn't put any time or energy into developing a residual side of things until later in my career.
Well,
And so,
I mean, one reason we've stayed in it is because my partner and I, we really enjoy it. And it's been challenging, especially for my partner. He's just not really all that interested in doing something different. So
Yeah.
this is so timely because we're going to meet in a couple of hours to do some 2021 planning.
Yeah, good. Well,
Well,
and
I want to add on to that because when you start letting go of transactional stuff, you go through a grief process and you have to figure out what's going to give you energy. For me, I'm an extrovert, so sitting at my desk and doing stuff, and even the Zoom stuff that I'm currently doing, which is minimal, it can be tiring. And so, you know, I always want to have a way to get my transactional needs met, but I don't think that needs to be my income.
Yeah. And I guess it's the real question of where are you going to put your energy right now? Into developing more transactional business opportunities or into developing more residual business opportunities?
Definitely residual.
That, yeah, and
Right.
that's what we're really thinking about, moving that in our mindset. Because I will tell you that my little look into the crystal ball says that transactional business is unlikely to ever come back in the way that we knew it before. There might be some of it, I get that, but the fact that it's going to come back full board, no. And so we might as well look at residual income because it has advantages far beyond the month-to-month income stream kind of a reality a lot of people have. And I've said to people before, if you're not willing to move from transactional towards a residual sort of model, I do hope you're spending some time developing your exit strategy. So let that soak
Yeah.
in for a second,
Yeah, this
because
is Brian. I never liked that transactional business anyway because it was always seemingly slow to me. That's why I've
yeah,
always done
yeah,
stuff outside of medicine. But
sure,
the people that mentored me when I was part of the startup team and helping them design HR software, and I've seen how they focus things. So they always focus on three things: recurring income,
mhm,
something with no accounts receivable,
mhm,
and a reproducible product.
yes,
So those three, in terms of a three-legged stool, if you will, were the things that they focused on. So, turned in, you create a software, but then you're licensing it and you're doing all
yes,
the different kinds of things. And that just, it can go without you. And I think that's what I'm looking at.
right, right, right.
Hey,
Well, and in
Brian,
fact, yep.
excuse me, Brian, would you say those three things again? No accounts receivable. What were the other two?
Recurring income.
Okay.
So that's like something that you can build. Like think about some of the physicians now, like T's physicians that's doing the subscription service. That's a recurring income model.
Right.
Mhm.
And then the other is a reproducible product.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah. And we'll be talking about evergreen products. And I want you guys to all know this. I believe with every fiber of my being that you guys already have so much product already developed that you just need to maybe repackage a little bit, but redeploy, deployed in this more residual kind of a model. So you've got a lot of stuff that is evergreen. It just needs to be locked in and then put up in a way that people can get to forever. And we'll be talking about that in great, great detail. But again, I believe that unless someone is willing to move away from that transactional way of doing business, that they better be putting some thought into an exit strategy. Because in our line of work, to just say, I'm done and close your door is financially foolish. Okay, you guys have built clienteles. Are you saying there's nothing there that you could hand over to someone else? Nothing that someone might pay you to be, take over your practice? I mean, come on, let's put together an exit strategy. If you're done, you're done. And again, as we've talked about on several of our calls, if you are in the autumn or the winter of your career development anyway, you should be thinking about an exit strategy, particularly if you're in the winter. Don't wait too long for that snow to fall. What's the exit strategy going to be? All right, so there's some things to ponder. All right, let me go to the next one. Now, here are some things, and I just threw enough that fit on the screen. I think you guys can add more to this, but what would you say are the attributes of a disruption-proof business? So what are we actually trying to have as our little checklist as we go about putting together what this disruption-proof business needs to be? Well, here are the ones that I threw on there. Hopefully, you guys will use these as to stimulate you to come up with more to add to our list. But I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing has a very far reach, that I can go way beyond my geographical footprint, maybe something that is even global. I want to be able to reach as far as I possibly can to go after the audience I love the most. Yeah, and that might be like in Patty's situation, women-owned businesses. In Jane's situation, dealing with, are you still doing physician coaching as the primary kind of practice?
Healthcare, yeah,
Healthcare,
healthcare
yeah.
executives.
Yeah. All right. So that's great. If you guys want to stay focused on whatever that little industry happens to be, a little niche niche in the industry happens to be, that's great. Can you take it further away from where you are? And so that's it. Let's go far, far, far. Reach way, way, way out there. The other thing is, can we make our audience broader? I mean, I know that a lot of the things we might like to do would be focused on that one particular segment of the population, but with a little bit of work, we might be able to take some of the stuff we've created and put it together in a format and put it up for delivery to a far broader audience. And that broader audience allows us to have greater impact, and it allows us to introduce additional revenue streams for ourselves. And so it's all good. So I want to go far, but I also want to go wide, if I can. Thoughts about far and wide?
Yeah, I read an interesting, this is Brian again. I read an interesting book about this called Co-opetition. Is combining competition and cooperation together. And they talk about those very two things in terms of building strategic alliances or building a network where you complement people that are service that would utilize your product for a target demographic that you're serving, and how you can really build out into that broader audience.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, and I love when I find resources that support what we're sharing, or bring us new awarenesses, because this is what's really all about. I want a disruption-proof business, and so I need to go far, because maybe I can reach far enough that the disruption I'm experiencing locally is not part of the reality of people that are far away, or a broad audience. If my little segment is disrupted for whatever reason, maybe the broader audience can more than compensate for whatever the challenges are that slice of the pie it happens to be having. Which gets to the next point: having products and services for everyone. I know that everyone has their favorite kind of audience and has their favorite kind of client to deal with, but how many of you recognize that whatever it is you have to offer in terms of intellectual property, and I also believe you guys have more intellectual property than you think you do, but in terms of intellectual property, recognize that with a little bit of tweaking, you might very well be able to have this for a totally different audience. So, for example, I've never been interested in having products for the consumer level, ever. My clients were always corporations, groups, whatever the case may be. That was my targeted audience. I was never interested in having a book on sales skills for general release to the public. Didn't interest me at all. But is there any reason why I can't say, well, maybe now's the time? So I'm not obligated to do that, but I could do that. And there is opportunity to do that. So I think in a disruption-proof business, you want to make sure that you've got products and services that you have deployed in many different ways. I'm kind of reminded of the Chicken Soup series. Remember those books when they were all the rage? Well, it wasn't here's chicken soup. It was Chicken Soup 4, and now they came up with, I don't know how many were ultimately in the series, but it was dozens of different back ends to whatever that title happens to be. They were basically leveraging their intellectual concept to touch everyone that they felt like touching. Certainly we were talking about leveraging technology more and more, and technology is always adding, expanding new and wonderful sorts of things, like going on to telemedicine. Okay, right now I can electronically capture my pulse rate, my EKG, my blood pressure from my home, and I can instantly share that data with the physician. So it's not like they have no information, they have no vital signs to even be looking at. Technology is constantly changing, and as it does, opportunities are going to change as well. So I want to make sure that to build a disruption-proof business, that I am doing my best to leverage the technology that exists, which gets us to the two ultimates. Ultimately, I would like to have in a fully disruption-proof business, zero touch, zero travel. So if I don't need to come into physical contact with anybody or travel to them, then that's a step in the right direction. Now, again, I want to make sure that I temper this by saying, if you guys really love that touch thing, like, can you imagine if you were a massage therapist and I said you want to become zero touch? This is not going to happen. You're a massage therapist. You by definition have to touch somebody. So so I'm putting these out there just to say you don't need to meet all of these requirements to build a disruption-proof business, but try to meet as many of them as makes sense for what your actual career happens to be, or your actual profession happens to be. And then we get to the last two. This idea about maximizing efficiency. So that's efficiency in delivery, as Patty was saying earlier, not having to travel even locally in a big city. Think of how much time that saves, because it's not just the time in the car. You had to get ready to go. And then there was all that, well, I'm going to make sure I leave early enough that I blah, blah, blah. I mean, how many hours of your life were actually consumed by going on a 30-minute appointment or a 1 hour long appointment? So yeah, like I used to say to my international clients, they wanted to hire me for a half-day program. It's like, there's no such thing as a half-day program if I have to get aboard an airplane. You might only put me in front of an audience for a half a day, but you're paying for all of it. So let's be a little bit more creative in how you use me when I get there. And then we already talked about residual income. I think I have one more slide for you guys, and then we'll be done for today's. Yeah, getting started again. This is your actual homework if you're interested in getting the most out of this little series. I would encourage you very much to conduct a full inventory of your existing IP assets. Now, inside of those IP assets, you would put all sorts of things like every article you've ever written, every program you've ever developed. If you put together an outline for a talk you were given, that's part of your intellectual property. If you were ever develop any kinds of handouts, any sorts of supportive materials, that's part of your intellectual property. Now, so if you wrote a book, that's intellectual property. I want you to have a full inventory of these assets, because I believe that a lot of what you guys have as existing intellectual property, you did it and now it's sitting on a shelf somewhere. In fact, I will not be at all surprised to find out that you guys, as you were going looking for your articles and all that, you went like, I didn't even remember writing this. You know, or, oh my gosh, it's been forever. Look what I put together on an airplane and never finished, you know? So I want you to actually gather all those things together so that you can go like, oh my gosh, I don't really need to create anything. I've already got it done, or mostly done, but I just need to look at what I've got. And so that's the first thing. Now, I've even had people say to me, yeah, but T, I don't have anything of my own. Everything that I do, I'm certified in by somebody else. To that, let me say hogwash. Unless you signed an agreement that said that the only way you will ever deliver that intellectual property that you learned and got certified in is verbatim, top to bottom, start to finish, nothing taken from it, nothing added to it, I'm going to assume that what you do is what everybody I've ever met with a successful business does. You learn from countless sources, and you pull from all those sources elements of what you've learned, and you blend those elements together into whatever program, product, or service your specific client needed at that point in time. So you're not purists in your delivery of whatever that intellectual property is that you got certified in. You learned it, you paid for it. The assumption going into it was that you were going to incorporate that into your practice. And I know you guys are noble enough that you're going to give credit where credit is due. You're going to say, yeah, I learned this from so-and-so, and I learned that from so-and-so. But I'm going to say, with pretty rare exception, you guys are not locked into a deal with someone that says you must present their product in a pristine form, exactly the way that they told you to do it. No deviations, no additions, no nothing, right? Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So how is that different than you going to the bookstore and buying a book on whatever subject and then going like, I learned something really interesting in this book I just read, blah, blah, blah. Let me share it with you. Did you just violate something by doing all that? My answer is you did not. And so what I'm saying is that I believe you also have a category of intellectual property that you may not even recognize as being your own. And that is the unique assembly of these concepts, principles, tools, and techniques that you've gathered from countless sources. So you put all those things together, you do your own form of merging of brilliance, and you end up with something that is substantial. Why can you not present that as being some intellectual property of your own? So how many of you believe, yeah, you all went through some coaching program, but no two of you coach the same way, right?
Yes.
Right. You
That's
learn
really good. I've
that.
always had problems with that, those, or at least in my own perceptions.
Right. And so you don't violate anything you actually signed and give credit where credit is due. And
Hmm.
I think you've honored yourself and you've honored the individuals that you've learned from. That's all I think that the world should ever expect of you. I even okay, yeah, I've created a lot of intellectual property, but you guys know I never hesitate to talk about the merging of brilliance and where a lot of this stuff came from. And because I got those insights from all these other people, I had plenty of my own ahas. And the act of blending it all together and working with you guys have taken it to additional levels and blah, blah. How wonderful. Isn't that what's supposed to happen?
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah. So when I talk about IP assets, I want you to actually say, I do coach in a unique way. I do train in a unique way. I incorporate certain skills and techniques in the way that I deliver my services that are unique, and that could very well be a vitally valuable IP asset. Also, just so we can do this, I know we're a few minutes over time, but a full inventory of your existing and former clients. When you begin to deploy this, and you will, you're going to need somebody to announce it to, who may very well be your first adopters. And who better than to go to your existing and former clients to get their feedback, get their insights, and maybe they'll enroll, maybe they'll start spreading the word and have some viral ability. But I know this, I don't want to do it piecemeal. I want to know that when I'm ready to deploy, I know who I'm deploying it to. And so hopefully you guys already have some sort of a CRM that allows you to easily say, these are my existing customers, these are my former customers, these are whatever categories they happen to fall into, umpteen different buckets of people you might want to let know you exist. The next one is a full inventory of your existing marketing assets. So yeah, as you go about doing this, you're going to be writing new emails and you're going to be creating new landing pages and whatever. You're going to need copy. You don't need to write it from scratch. Go pull out everything you've ever done in the name of marketing. So proposals you've put together and brochures and briefs and one-pagers and all that sort of stuff. Pull it all together. Just take a look at it and go like, oh, wow, I'm impressing myself. I forgot that I did that. Oh, that's really good. I'll use that again. And so I'm just trying to say to you guys that you don't need to create anything from scratch. If you already have all of this stuff, you just need to do that. And I know that can be a big task for people. When we do a backup of our computers, of everything, I never throw anything away. The last time I did a backup, I had 14 million files.
Mm.
Okay, I'm not going to go through 14 million files one by one, but I might go and look through the different file folders and go like, oh, what's in there? So I want you to have some fun doing it. This is a process of discovery, but more than anything, I want you guys to walk away from this experience going like, I have so much to offer. I have done so much over the course of my career. It's time for me to package and present this to the world in a new way that maybe reaches more people, reaches people in a different way. So we want to do that. And that means we're also going to finally take an inventory of the tools of the trade you have. This is making sure if you guys are going to go embarking down this path of disruption proofing your business, you are going to need a few things. And so do you already have any sort of a social media presence? I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I have a LinkedIn account that I haven't looked at in several years. Okay. I have a Facebook page that I do fun stuff with. I have, umpteen different websites, most of which are now nothing but storage cabinets. So what are these existing tools of the trade that you have? Do you have a decent camera or a decent phone that you could use as a camera? Do you have a decent microphone that you might be able to use? So I want you to actually look at all of your tools, whether they are technology tools, whether they're online tools. What do you have already in place that you can start to build from? And we will pick up from there when we talk again on Thursday. But this is your homework, so spend a little bit of time taking inventories of your existing IP assets, your client lists, your marketing assets, and tools of the trade. Okay, questions, comments, thoughts?
Thank
This
you.
is good.
Thank you. This was
Yeah.
really excellent and timely.
Excellent, good, good, good. All right, well, we'll talk to everybody then on Thursday and get into the meat of it. All right, thanks everybody. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.